feel like I've been here before. I didn't leave this place like this earlier. That's for sure. It was a lot cleaner when I started setting up in here. I'll just have to deal with it later. Today I'm talking about Signalis. Damn. I discovered it 3 weeks ago and just got around to making a video about it. You might be kind of curious as to what all the shit around me was for, and well, to answer that, I'm gonna need to talk about briefly cover the story of Signalis as fast as possible. In order to explain the more intricate stuff, I need to cover the surface level details first. So with that, I'm gonna go go grab my chair. I'm gonna go grab some snacks and get to work on talking about the story of Signalis. So, I'll be right back. To explain what I was talking about earlier, I need to briefly explain the story of Signalis. And by briefly, I mean less than an hour long. It's hard to go into the important but convoluted stuff quickly, but it's also important that the basic stuff be understood. So if you don't want spoilers, go play Signalis to completion, cry a few times, and then come back. And with that out of the way, you've been warned. Heavy spoilers ahead. Let's begin. Signalis, at its simplest, is about an android called Elster, who is looking for someone. At times, she's looking for an Alina Seo. Other times, it's an Ariane Young. Her goal in doing so is to remember a promise they made. Her journey takes her to a mine on a planet called Lang, where her search is for the previously mentioned Alina Seo. She meets a few android survivors, being different models of android from her, and she encounters a girl named Issa, who is a human, who came to Lang looking for someone as well. The mine known as Sierpinski is falling apart. Its android leader, Falk, is in a comatose state and sick. The sickness spread to the humans and androids both, reducing humans to nothing and androids to a zombie-like state, with the ability to reboot after being killed. Both Elster and Issa have their journey slowed by an android named Adler, who keeps talking about how this has happened before, that they should never have come back. Despite his attempts, Elster makes it to the lowest point of the mine and finds a structure that resembles the gate she encountered at the start of the game. Passing through it leads her to the same ship she woke up in at the beginning, presumably housing Alina inside. Elster fails to open the hatch, rips her arm off in the process, and proceeds to shut down. Credits roll, and it's back to the title screen. But you can't quit. Selecting anything but the settings option will restart the game, but the intro is different. Elster boots up in the same place on the Penrose before the crash. It's still in space even, and it's on its mission to find someplace livable, or maybe find alien life. Elster goes through a maintenance check of the ship before reporting to her human commander. Ariane Young. Where it is made extremely clear that these two are in love with each other. So why does the human lady love the robot? To explain, let's pause where we are in the game's story and go back to the events before the game. Ariane was raised by her mother on the moon Rotfront. Her early years were spent in isolation as her mother raised her while working as a radio operator for the growing Yusan nation, a faction that split from the Empire by the same name. Originally, the one that spread around the solar system was the Empire. During the war between the two factions, the homeworld of humanity and the Yusan Empire, known as Veneta, is ravaged by war, but ultimately taken by the nation. Two Venetan combat veterans will be very important in a bit. Their names are Lilith Ito and Alina Seo. Lilith presumably has her neural pattern uploaded to a database and to make androids out of it. These androids, known as replicas, are made out of neural patterns of select humans, which are known as gestalts in the game. While Ariane is living with her mother, she picks up an interest in art, which is considered to be unusual by the nation as it does not do anything to support their cause and thus should not be practiced. Why are people siding with these guys again? Due to this, Ariane's aunt takes her away from her mother and moves her into the more populated side of Rotfront, where she attends school and gets ruthlessly bullied, because she likes fun things banned by the nation, and also because she suffers from the condition where your hair starts whitening when you're young. As if that's something she could control. She's insulted and assaulted by classmates for this before one of those times a girl named Issa notices the incident. Her twin sister Erica steps in and intervenes, thus starting the friendship between Ariane and the two twins, which lasted the rest of Ariane's time in school before she went to mandatory military service. Not much is mentioned about her time in the military service, probably because she didn't enjoy it and wanted to forget it when she could. Upon completion of her service, she's given two opportunities: return to civilian life with a job picked out for her, or join the Penrose program and be launched into deep space in search of habitable planets and alien life. Ariane chose to join the Penrose program. Well, it was that or the Sierpinski mines, so that's understandable. She's assigned to a ship and given a combat technician replica unit known as Elster, and sent off in the totally real impossible mission. The start of her journey was everything that she had hoped for and more. Soon, the loneliness set in. She was trapped in a metal box and had no one to talk to, except for an Elster unit. She never did bother to read the instructions for the replica she was assigned, however. If she did, she would have realized that it said not to befriend the unit, show it war footage, or ask it about the war. All three of these things Ariane did in fact do, which caused the Elster unit to relive Gestalt memories, but more importantly, caused persona destabilization, which allowed this specific Elster to be its own self and stray away from the set neural pattern, which paved the way for her and Ariane to bond with each other. This bond got so close and special that they fell in love. The two were the happiest they could be. Around 3,000 cycles into their journey, Elster wakes up to do her routine check before reporting to Ariane. The two embrace each other before Ariane explains that their next orders are coming in this cycle, and that they should celebrate. She's back in Sierpinski's mind with a new goal. Find Ariane, keep their promise. But things have changed. Notes previously readable are now all obscured. Doors previously locked and unlocked may have flesh growing out of them. Corrupted replicas are more aggressive and larger in numbers. But none of it matters. Elster must go on. She will do anything for the woman she loves. She descends the hole in floor 1 once more, only to end up somewhere else. The world is twisting. Sierpinski is being reshaped and reformed. It's now taken the form of Ariane's home. Elster is tasked with collecting tarot cards and using them to gain access to a room past this wall. To do so, she must use everything she can find. Signal broadcasters, hospital records. If it could lead to a way to Ariane, it's going to be used. But if Isa and Erica are both dead, how has Isa been here this whole time with us? With the tarot cards collected and put in the right place, Elster can configure the planets on the wall to have the matching moon cycles to them, opening up the way to Ariane's room. There's a locked safe in the King in yellow. With the seals around it now gone, it's time to go home. Elster prepares herself one last time before traveling down a hallway filled with notes from the Falk unit running the Sierpinski mines before she fell ill. She recalls memories that aren't hers that appeared after stepping through the gate, into the red nothingness below the mines. The final note states, "We were dancing to that song they started the broadcast with. We fell asleep watching that movie we had seen before so many times. If only I could take us back to that time when we were happy. These memories are mine now." She's been overridden with the memories of Elster. The room after this holds the Falk in question, no longer asleep. Falk is set on making the two whole by either killing Elster or Elster killing her. She's immune to standard damage, and instead of shooting her, Elster must put 6 spears through her face, shooting her to create an opening to jam a spear through her.
Okay, hold on. I'm adjusting things right now.
It looks right from my point of view. But watch that be off. I have in my hands a Dead Space G Fuel shaker cup. I pre-ordered this, which is really depressing. G Fuel sponsor me. I like money. Bring back the plasma energy flavor. Maybe I'll buy more G Fuel. Otherwise, I will keep stealing my friend's tubs of G Fuel while he is out at college. I'm joking. He gave me the 2 that I own. I'm a fat tub of lard, so I'm actually not going to go 1 scoop. I'm going to go 1.5 scoops. Also because it doesn't matter how much caffeine I have in my system. I'm taking a melatonin gummy when I'm done editing this, and I'm crashing in my bed. Woo. Alright, I think I'm ready to start the yap sesh. Let me fix my hair real fast. Time to start syncing this like 15 minutes into the setup process. That is okay. So I'm recording the video on this phone, but the mic is right here. I just bought this at Best Buy like 3 weeks ago. Let me clear the set a little. It's gonna be important for a bit later. Alright. Sit today. So, I just cock-blocked the viewers from seeing which ending I got on my first playthrough. I'll get to it in a second. I would just like to start with a little breakdown of what the fuck's happening, because there's a lot going on in Signalis. So, it was maybe mentioned a little bit, or maybe you have some idea of what's going on in Signalis because you've watched video essays. It got real sad. I did that a lot. My pondering ass. Let's start with a brief overview of some of the characters. I want to start with 2 of the more, actually 3 of the more important replicas, which I just so happen to have pictures of and printed out copies of the replica known issues stuff. So I'm going to quickly get those down, starting with this short fucker. It's the Colibri. So let's read up a little bit. Oh, am I bleeding? Interesting. Great care should be given to Colibris. Their neural patterns are very unstable, and their bioresonance module makes them very susceptible to influence from others. Like most bioresonant individuals, Colibris will often look subconsciously, I already fucked up reading something. Holy. Colibris will often subconsciously create an emotional feedback loop, imitating then broadcasting these emotions of those around them, acting as sort of an amplifier. While they are trained to recognize and disengage this behavior, already unstable units can sometimes spiral into persona degradation. Due to their bioresonant connection, neural pattern development in Colibris varies less than in other models. Fuck! The constant exchange of memories and emotions between units of a... How
do you pronounce that word? I've spent, like, what, 12 years in the educational system, and I don't know how to pronounce a simple word? Acts as a safety net that buffers extreme changes. However, once a majority of units degrade, they will drag the remaining units down with them. Because of this, it is important to decommission Colibri units instantly when they begin to degrade. For persona stabilization, Colibri should have access to a well-stocked library. Now, this is the reason Colibris are important, even if they're on the lesser side of the important scale when it comes to replica characters. Bioresonance, something I have to talk about now. So, how do I begin this? I could pull up the Signalis wiki for bioresonance. So, bioresonance in Signalis is compared to the... not compared, it's described as the song of the universe. Many cannot understand it. Others can hear the song and play with it, but the more powerful bioresonance can conduct it. And there's a list of what bioresonance can do, confirmed, and cannot do. By reviewing all the references, we can conclude that the powers of bioresonance are vast, with it being able to distort reality, influence thoughts, and possibly even create life. I'm gonna take out the possibly in that sentence, and I'll explain when we get to Falk. I'm gonna stick with Colibris real quick, which their ability is actually to control emotions and thoughts, as well as that whole emotional feedback loop thing that kind of is more relevant in their combat in-game, where you create a feedback loop with your radio frequencies to fucking kill them. But Colibris work in tangent with Falk units to control other replicas around them, to give them orders, to dictate what they do, yada yada, right? So they're kind of like the messengers of Falk's will. But also, Colibris apparently can melt someone's brain. I keep seeing that appear in comment sections under like Instagram videos of Signalis shit posts, because the majority of them involve Colibri, because she's just too short to do wrong, but too silly to do right. So that brings me to the sticky note points I have for Colibri. Can they actually melt brains? Or like, just destroy your head with bioresonance? I'm inclined to believe yes, given the effects that you undergo in the game if you don't do anything about them being in the same room with you. They just kind of, I wouldn't say melt your brain, but definitely overload Elster in some way, just with sheer noise. And I think the fact that bioresonance doesn't just apply and affect replicas, but also gestalts, definitely could fuck up a human's brain. I'm gonna say that's a potential, maybe even definite. So that's 1 point down. Is she bioresonant because she's short? I don't know which bottle I was on when I wrote that. I'm gonna go with a maybe, because, so, the few bioresonants that we're aware of in Signalis, like, that we have seen physically, are Colibris, Falks, and then, Ariane, but she's a human, not a replica. Colibris and Falks are actually assigned with bioresonant modules, as stated in the known issues for Colibri. However, I think they maybe have chose Colibri as the bioresonant capable one due to the neural pattern it was, like, the model was based off of. Maybe potentially being better fit to handle bioresonance frequencies. And potentially the gestalt that Colibris were based on was maybe in the likeness of Colibri. as we assume, going quickly to Elster, I'm presuming that the Gestalt Elster was based off of is the Venetian combat veteran Lilith Ito, I don't know, bad at pronunciations. Either way, assuming that is who Elster's neural pattern was based off of, I'm assuming then other replica units are based off, like their appearances are based off the people they once were. Which is why I believe Falk, if I remember correctly, was based off the Grand Empress of the Yusan Empire. That's for Elster's points. We'll get back to that. So, it very well could be that the Gestalt Calibri units were modeled after, happen to be bioresonant, and also very short. So that's not a serious point, but it's a maybe. So that was definitely the Jack Daniels speaking. Final point. Is she stupid? Yes. Moving on, we have Falk. There is no replica known issues file for her, but there is a replica overview. I forgot to print those overview papers out when I was setting up for that community post. So, I'll just give you my memory of what Falks do. Falk is usually used as an overseer for facilities or like a leader in combat. The propaganda page you can find in Signalis on Falk is it describes her as a Wunderwaffen, something like that. I forget the German, if that's the actual German word. Like a wonder weapon for the Yusan nation. They created her to be an extremely powerful and potent bioresonant replica, capable of controlling lesser units. Those feature behind me, and the picture of Calibri on the ground, in battle or in tasks. Commonly, they are paired with an Adler unit. This bastard right here, we'll get to him, to do the, I guess, more data analysis side of her work. And Calibris are also used to manage her bioresonant signals and spread her influence. So, with that little explanation out of the way, first sticky note point I had actually goes back to the known issues files. Does Falk have one? Throughout Signalis, anytime you pick up a replica known issues file, it is always started with a for commander's eyes only prompt, which urges whoever is reading it to be, the commander in charge of said replica units they're overviewing. And that upon reading and finishing the read of said paper, to dispose of it. I might have taken a little bit of creative liberties in the replica known issues video I made, and instead of it being a piece of paper, it was a tape, of course, VHS stuff. However, usually the only people that see those papers are the highest in, say, like a facility, or the highest of like a leader in combat. So, usually a Falk unit. There may be times where certain facilities or places are ran by a Gestalt who is a higher power, technically, than a Falk. But I doubt there is a known issues file that is available to many people. There probably is one on record, but I doubt that many people have access to it or even know it exists. Alright, next. Is the unit on Sierpinski 23 strong enough to warp reality through bioresonance? Sounds kind of like a stupid question, but that's assuming if you think that the entirety of what happens on the Sierpinski side of Signalis' story is entirely because of Falk's dreams. I personally believe a few things, so we're going to quickly go to my breakdown of the story I got from a couple of video essays and my own reading. When the 3000th, or the 3000th, no, I had that right. When the 3000th cycle of the Penrose mission Ariane and Elster were sent on finally came around, and they were told to not try and prolong their suffering, inevitably they did, because they would like to spend an eternity with each other. However, at some point, Elster deactivated before being able to go through with their promise and prevent Ariane from suffering further, leaving her trapped in a cryopod for what she presumed to be forever, in pain, unable to sleep or die. And in her suffering, in her desperation for Elster to come back and keep her promise, I believe she used her bioresonance, maybe unwillingly, maybe willingly, to create a new reality. One where a universe where she was sent to Sierpinski instead of the Penrose Project occurs, but also allowing there to be a gateway between the standard reality where Ariane lays and this new reality that occurs. In this new reality, on the Sierpinski mines, when this nowhere, this red void beneath the Sierpinski mines is discovered, in this new reality, they discover the nowhere underneath the mines and send an excavation team to scout it out. It consists of 3 Mina units, 2 Auras, and an Elster. And that's very important. This Elster unit is known as Elster S2301. This is important because throughout the game, I believe at least on the Sierpinski mines areas of the game, when you die, you will get in the blue screen the unit shown being disabled and dying is Elster S2301. But I believe at other times it says Elster 512. This is important because the Elster you play as is this requested excavation Elster. However, throughout the game, you will find Adler who says you shouldn't have come back, you should have never returned, but if you find his journal in his room, he clearly remembers an Elster unit being present in the mining facility, but no trace of such a unit, implying that throughout all these different variations of loops, there are times where Elster is a replica within the facility who goes through the events of a loop, dies, and then the next iteration could come back as someone foreign to the people of Sierpinski, someone who shouldn't be there. But I think what ties this Elster from Sierpinski in this new universe to Elster 512, the one laying dead on the floor in the Penrose, floating through the void of space, is the signal broadcast at the beginning of the game. I think any Elster that hears that in a dream state, like the one at the beginning of the game, inherits the memories of Elster 512 and takes on the personality of 512. Meaning, throughout the game you play as Elster S2301, but you have developed, like, fucking signal brain rot and have now decided you are Elster 512 instead of who you were previously. Which is important for many reasons. So, now that I'm done discussing, what did any of that mean? That goes back to the point I had for Falk, which was, did she do all the warping of Sierpinski on her own? I do not believe she did, because I think through Ariane's dream, this Falk on guiding the facility became like a Colibri, a signal booster for Ariane's bioresonance. So two very powerful bioresonance started spreading a signal to an even farther point now, which allowed the entirety of the Sierpinski facility to fall to ruin. Because once it goes through Ariane, spreads to Falk, spreads to Colibris, spreads to the whole place, which would explain how everything keeps falling into ruin every single time Falk passes through the Red Gate in nowhere. Because she inherits Elster's memories unintentionally, comes back with a sickness, falls dormant into a long slumber, and begins dreaming Ariane's dream and spreading the corruption. The corruption in question is definitely hosted by Ariane in her bioresonant dreams, because a lot of the corruption that spreads to gestalts and replicas is very similar to that of radiation poisoning. Besides, the whole replicas become like aggressive rabies-induced robots. That part does not happen in radiation poisoning or radiation sickness that I'm aware of. I would not know. I've never gotten radiation poisoning or radiation sickness, so could be. However, wow, where the fuck was I going with that last statement? However, all the various things cluttered around Sierpinski in this nightmarish state are definitely things projected by Ariane, spread through Falk and the Colibris. So, you know, rooms filled with trash seen on the Penrose at the end of the game, like cancerous tumors emerging out of nowhere, fleshy growth in things where it shouldn't be, and replicas having their skin just peel and decay. All things radiation can induce in people. Which is why it's coming through Ariane and not Falk. Because Falk would have no reason to spread these thoughts through her bioresonant dreams. She's not experiencing that, but Ariane is. Ah, here it is. Okay. So, Elster. Elsters are a very stoic and loner type replica, meant to be on their lonesome. Their neural pattern was based on a Venetan combat veteran. Veneta, by the way, you might not know, supposedly highly believed by the community to be what they call Earth in the Signalis universe. So this combat veteran gets their consciousness uploaded into a replica unit known as Elster. Elster's needs are very basic. She doesn't need much to survive and can go long periods of time in isolation without having to speak to people. However, she, despite being a great technician, great at reconnaissance, great in combat, because of her PTSD, anything related to war or the war on Veneta will cause destabilization and degradation in her persona. So it's probably best to avoid talking about that like you would, you know, your Vietnam veteran grandpa at the family reunion. I'm speaking from experience. So yeah. So Elster units, besides being these stoic military experts, are extremely non-verbal. Wow, she's just like me. They're very bad at handling PTSD, which is reasonable. Okay. Need a drink. My throat's getting dry and scratchy. Man, this is going to take a while to upload to Google Drive. Okay, so, first question. So, in the game on Rotfront, there is a safe, a letter safe, a letter combination lock on it. The starting letters on it spell out Elster, but they could also spell out Huang's name, which made people believe it could potentially be that, and Huang is the neural pattern for Elster. Could also be in the picture of Alina Seo and whoever this other veteran is, they are a lower rank than Alina. If the theory that the top of the list is the CO is to be believed, then the women in the photo are likely not the CO and not Huang. So it seems like the only evidence we have that it could be Anna Huang is just that name part, that, you know, the letter lock having her name in it, also having Elster's name in it. However, for Lilith, we have a couple. The photo featuring Lilith and Alina are both found in the E2 photograph store, or the family store, which houses a lot of photos, which would explain why a picture containing a potential relative of the family houses, you know, Lilith in it. Why would there be someone not related to the E2 family that they're printing a picture of? Right? Bear with me. Hear me out. Secondly, in the picture described, Lilith has a injury in her right eye, either potentially blinding it entirely or just damaging it and having it bandaged while it recovers. Which is reflective of Elster's state at the end of the game, where Adler puts a knife through her eye, and she is blinded in her right eye, similar to Lilith in the picture. So, while there's not a lot of evidence for either, it's definitely probably more plausible, in my opinion, that the woman to the left of Alina is Lilith, who is also probably the neural pattern for Elster. My personal reason is really shitty, honestly, but the what's the word? The abbreviation for Elster in the game is LSTR. Lilith starts with an L. That's it. That's it. God, I'd be terrible in speech and debate. This is why I didn't do it throughout my school years. Alright, next question. Is the Elster in the loop at S2301 with 512's memories? I talked about this during the folk bit. I do believe that the Elster we play as, well, not even believe, I know the Elster we play as is Excavation Team C's Elster 2301. And I believe through a dream she has at some point where she encounters the magpie signal, which is, for those that, you know, might not know the terms we use, I say we like I'm an official part of the Signalis community, as the Signalis community calls it, the magpie signal is the 3-note oddity that number station at the beginning of the game Elster hears before the game actually starts, which I've heard from a couple theories that I totally agree with. The number signal, the number station, the magpie signal is this frequency and way Aryan communicates to the dying memories of Elster to wake up. So, if a 2301 iteration hears this signal, it causes the unit to wake up and begin experiencing the memories of 512. And from this point, it's up to the decisions of that unit whether or not it continues to fulfill the promise the original unit made in freeing Ariane, or leaving like a bitch, or not doing its job at remembering well enough and getting the memory ending. So, I do believe that it is 2301 with 512's memories. Next page. Is 512 more of her Gestalt memories or more of her own being? I think it is an even balance of both. The human memories and her own creature. I think I'm sitting on my wall. It's annoying. I think someone that is a veteran of war would be less in tune with their emotions than Unit 512 is. You know, the Ulster on the Penrose being very upfront about being emotional and lesbian. So the next question is, what parts of the game and story are real and what parts are not? A lot of people seem to like to speculate that a lot of the gameplay of Signalis is a dream and that it's not actually happening and it's all just in the head of a dying girl trapped in foreverness. I like to take a more, what would be the word for it, literal approach to it, in the sense that it can still be a dream, but it can still happen in some reality, which is what I mentioned earlier, where I believe through the power of bioresonance, Ariane's dreams are projected into a reality where both her and the memories of her lover are intertwined with this new world. Cool. So the point I left off on, I'm just going to let run with some like background I added in, so I don't feel like trying to remember where the fuck I was going. I'm going to go back to what I was talking about with Yara. In realizing that she has free will and can be her own individual that doesn't just have to slave away for the nation, she decides to go against the facility's wishes and go hide away in one of the service tunnels the Auras create and just sit there and tend to her plans. And that's all she kind of does. She fixes your flashlight because she's handy at repairs and stuff, and just sits there. The entirety of Sierpinski is falling to hell, and this little bastard is just sitting there in the tunnel, potentially even not aware of the destruction going on around them. And I think that's very respectable. Fuck the Yusan Nation, but the idea that they just take a bunch of people, put them in a metal coffin, and ship their asses out into the void of space, knowing they're not gonna find anything and they will most likely die a horrible, painful death, is really fucked up. And I think, the nation should fall. If there's ever a Signalis sequel, I think it should be about the fall of the Yusan Nation, and I don't know where they would go with that, but I think they deserve to burn. Minus. Big, lovable critters they are. They're like Big Daddies from BioShock if they weren't, you know, the source of my nightmares. Because despite a corrupted Mina still being a very deadly threat, they're not equipped with a drill on their hand to impale me. And the one uncorrupted Mina you encounter in the game is very friendly and reassures you that her death is okay and that it doesn't matter too much and that it's just how things go. You know, reassuring things to hear from someone in their dying words. Mental illness, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to save Adler. Stars. Okay, based off the starling bird, stars are like the basic unit of the Yusan Nation's military. Besides human lives that they do not care much about. They have a hierarchy, a social hierarchy amongst themselves, and if you promote a lower ranked individual, they will get pissed about it. So, like, imagine, for instance, I work in a kitchen. Imagine if, like, I, as a dishwasher, got promoted to sous chef when the guys that have been working there for, like, 4 years under the rule of 2 chefs, like, dying to get a promotion, dying to get this new title to prove their mettle, just gets overshadowed by some 18-year-old with a, ginger speckled beard and no hopes in life, right? Like, I'd be pretty pissed, too. Thank God I'm not a sous chef. I'm just a pantry cook now. Anyways. Most, if not all stars, are not even. All stars are proficient in combat with firearms, presumably also close combat weapons, batons, riot shields. You can even see leaders of star units that are corrupted throughout this facility of Sierpinski have riot shields and batons, whereas lower-ranking ones might not have them. Which is an important detail when you think about how a replica's past life still carries on through their corruption. Which brings me to my next topic. Not you, temperamental little rapscallion. I'm talking about these critters. Yalls. Yalls were based off a ballerina, so they like to sing and dance. A lot of them are assigned basic work tasks at facilities. Like a lot of the Yalls you see in Signalis that are corrupted will be using a kitchen knife or some other various tool they used in their past life. I resonate with these ones because I also am a simple-minded creature that likes to sing and dance and work in a kitchen. Except I'm not programmed to do that. I just chose to do that instead of work a 9-to-5 office job. Their degradation is kept in check by just giving them a mirror and access to music. But in the Sierpinski facility, all of the Yalls went crazy because their tape recorder was lost. They were getting a little too rambunctious with their music, which caused a stork unit to get a little pissed about the noise, break quarantine, and go put a knife through their tape recorder, causing severe degradation throughout the entirety of Yuldor. Brings me to the final lesser important replica, Storch. Take your pick. I'm not too picky. It's based off German words for birds, but I gave up on learning foreign languages after Spanish 2 last year. So, here we go. They are very temperamental, very sadistic in nature, and if their persona degrades, like even by a little shrivel, they will become very mean and abusive towards those under them or under their command. So Yalls, Colibris, star units, Auras, anyone of that nature might just get backhanded by a Storch who had like too rough of a day. Let's see. It is commonly suggested to pair them with a star unit. I don't know how the socializing of replicas works in Signalis, but I think it'd be really funny if just all the replicas were lesbians, so fuck it. Lesbian. Stork units will stabilize their personas by showering/bathing, and giving them books on history or mythology works to keep them stimulated. So not only are these things neat freaks and also extremely emotionally and or physically and or emotionally abusive to those under them, They are also history buffs. So, twice the mental illness for you. So finally, last replica we're talking about is Adler. The second in command of a facility, does all the desk office stuff for a Falk unit. Also, the biggest tier 3 sub to a Falk unit you could find. These guys are attached at the hip to Falks, and it probably annoys the shit out of them. So they do not mix well with other Adlers. Big surprise, right? They probably all fight over the tall lady they're working under. They become very emotionally dependent on their commander. No shit. Adlers are susceptible to bioresonant suggestion and very easy to control as of this. They get bored very easily and require new stimuli at regular intervals for stabilization. So, what I take away from this paper on Adler is that Adlers are very obsessive over tall, muscular women. And cannot stay focused. So Adler's neural pattern was probably based off an autistic Gen Alpha kid. Needs new stimuli, might as well just have an iPad in front of him, and would probably be the kind of person to, what's the word? Harass a woman? Yeah, something like that. However, the Adler on Sierpinski, despite being overly obsessed with the Falk in charge, is his own person and is kind of insane because he is one of the few replicas at Sierpinski that is fully aware of the loops by the time of the game. I don't know what he thinks killing Elster is going to do if he knows every time Elster dies or Elster makes it to the Red Dunes in nowhere, time loops again. But for some reason, he pushed what is speculated to be either 75 or 79 Elster units down an elevator before enough bodies piled up to cushion Elster's fall. Let me check if I have storage space still. I have 3 more minutes. But he is aware of the loops nonetheless. So apparently Adlers have also made it to Rotfront throughout loops, and I'm not sure if an Adler currently in a loop at Sierpinski is also aware that loops can occur on Rotfront, but if they are, that means the Adler whose face and skin melts off to reveal his corrupted form underneath, the one that says, "I have no mask and I hate everything," could potentially still live on in a Sierpinski loop Adler, who at the most is honestly just a mild inconvenience to the protagonists, which is Elster and Issa, compared to the final state of Adler at the end of the game, who is just batshit insane. I think that will bring us to the final concluding points I would like to make about Signalis, which are... I'm going to start with this one. What does any of it mean? So, my takeaway from Signalis was that when Ariane was placed in a cryopod to try and prolong her life so that Elster may be able to save her if they find a habitable planet throughout the Penrose mission, she never got to reawaken her or decide to put her out of her misery, which is what the promise, I believe, was. When Elster deactivated, Ariane's bioresonant capabilities kicked in to overdrive, creating a new reality where Elster could reawaken her memories inside a new unit, find a way to get to the Penrose, which the way Elster is connected to the Penrose still floating in space is through the nowhere. The ship in the nowhere represents the ship floating through space, the Penrose 512. And if Elster believes she's looking for an Alina Sio, she will never be able to make it into the ship because she does not remember the promise. It is only through a full awakening of Elster 512's memories in the 2301 unit that she can enter the Penrose. And from there, 3 endings, I believe, are possible. I don't believe the artifact ending is canon, and nor do I want to speak about it, because I'm having a hard enough time trying to put this into a consistent story outside of my head. It makes sense in my head, but it doesn't. It sounds a lot crazier out loud. But I think this is making sense so far. So if a Elster fully remembers, she will make it to the Penrose and get inside. From the cryopod room, 3 outcomes can occur. I need to delete more space. One, honestly, I kind of got the idea of doing this from watching all the Mini Minuteman videos that I do. Gotta be one of my favorite archaeologists. And I don't really like archaeology, but he makes me interested. Sink it. The first one is the leave ending, where Elster turns around, leaves the Penrose, takes off her combat configuration, and curls up and dies in the red nothing. I believe from this ending, the outcomes it has are 2 things. The loop resets. The loop starts a new iteration, and it adds a new Elster body, specifically a Elster with an orange chest piece, to the corpses Elster passes in the fake-out ending. I believe all Elster corpses in the fake-out ending are Elsters that achieve the leave ending, which would explain those bodies in the dunes, because any Elster that gets the fake-out ending will inevitably wake back up to continue to rot front. That is my hypothesis. So, what does that mean for the next ending? The memory ending. Elster is able to make it into the cryopod room, but when she wakes Ariane up, she doesn't recognize Elster. And Elster is starting to succumb to her wounds, which I'm surprised it took this long to start dying from a knife in the eye. But you know what? I personally might not get it because I'm not a lesbian robot, so who knows. But in her dying moments, she just wishes to stay in the proximity of her lover for a little bit longer before deactivating, lying on the side of the cryopod, which is the same position we find the Elster wearing a combat harness after the fake-out ending, when Elster, with one broken arm, crawls her way back into the Penrose. She picks up the pieces she needs to put herself back together from a deactivated Elster unit wearing a white harness, which I believe any time you get the fake-out ending and reawaken the memories of 512 in Elster 2301, you take the body parts of a memory ending Elster. The memory ending has to happen at some point in order to keep Elsters progressing through a loop properly. If the Elster never was able to deactivate and leave her harness behind like she does, no Elster, I believe, would be able to make it to Rotfront, or through Rotfront. So that leaves us with my final concluding ending, in my opinion. The one that brings an end to the loops, the nightmare, the signal, and the game as it is. This is my opinion, by the way. You don't have to believe me. You can say, John, you're fucking stupid, and I'm closing this video. But try hearing me out. I know I've taken a lot of this game very literally, and I've also mixed like 3 different video essays I watched with my own takeaway, but that's kind of why people share their thoughts, so people can hear them and think on it. And I thought on that. The promise ending is the final ending, the final ending, the closure to Ariane and Elster's story. Here's how I think of it. Elster is able to get into the cryopod room and awaken Ariane, where she is able to remember Elster this time. But Elster wants to hesitate killing her lover, as she fully is now in touch with 512's memory and being, as 2301 has now become 512 in everything except for, like, her model number. She is 512. She really doesn't want to kill the woman she loves, someone who she tried to prolong the life of, and at the end unintentionally caused her suffering. And at Ariane's wish, she puts her out of her misery by strangling her with her bare hands. Elster apologizes for what she has to do, only for Ariane to thank her for killing her, which is really sad because, as Falk puts it, they'll never dance again, but this time it's for maybe the same reasons or different ones. But either way, with Ariane dying, I believe the loop has to come to a closure. Elster dies again, but this time shuts off for good. With no signal to continue carrying this warped reality over, the Penrose disconnects itself, the nowhere ceases to exist, and the Penrose is back to being a coffin of sadness and sorrow floating through the void of the Oort cloud. That means whatever reality was being warped and twisted through these loops and iterations is now left to deal with the aftermath, potentially. Or maybe after the loop closes, it all just goes away and never happened. And all the replicas affected by it just forget about it. That's something I've yet to come to my conclusion on, and something you guys can come to your own conclusions on, if you choose to believe this. But I believe the promise ending is the only time there is a permanence in death in Signalis. When the person who is spinning this reality into this hell, unintentionally or not, if you choose to believe that Ariane's doing this knowing full well what's happening, or if you believe it's subconsciously happening through Ariane's bioresonant wishes and dreams. But in the end, through her death, I believe Signalis comes to a close. Elster does not wake up again. There's no nowhere anymore, and the Penrose is now lifeless. It is just empty. Not a soul left alive in it. And as bleak as that sounds, and as much as I as well hate to think about it, it's probably for the better for everyone involved. Elster finally gets to keep her promise and be at peace instead of having to constantly relive death after death after death. Ariane finally gets to have her peace and get to be with her lover one more time. And assuming that the end of the signal marks the end of the nightmare on Sierpinski, whether that means all the replicas affected just finally can be killed off or can finally die and never have to relive the nightmares again, or if it just never happened in that universe now, they're at peace as well. It is a sad ending, a sad way to think about the promise ending, but I believe it is what I believe happens. And that's up for you to come to your conclusions, whether or not you want to agree with that or not. And that's kind of why I'm making this video, because I've been worrying over, oh, people are going to think that's stupid. But I also remember, what people? Who's going to watch through this entire video? I've been worried about how this is going to sound and come out for 2 weeks now, which is why I've been putting it off for so long. But my coworker told me to just buckle down and do it and made me set a deadline for myself. So here I am, keeping that promise, ironically enough, since we're talking about Signalis. So with the final discussion points closed and this final sticky note being talked about, I'd like to leave some final statements from me. I believe the word I would use to describe the ending in my head for Signalis is a Pyrrhic victory. An empty victory. It's an empty feeling because these two people, these two characters, you're meant to feel so, so connected to, feel so, these are important people you don't want to see bad things happen to. You see bad things happen, very bad. Being trapped to forever suffer radiation poisoning is not good, and not a very good or pleasant death at all. And that's been documented time and time again. And seeing someone have only one hope through their lover who struggled for God knows how many cycles on, knowing at some point how much suffering Ariane is in, it must have been painful for both. Elster never being able to fully die until she was able to finish what she started. And Ariane having to sit there forever in pain waiting. Only for both of them to finally conclude their life story together in death. Neither one gets a happy ending in the way we may want. But that's how Signalis is. None of it's really happy or pleasant. I think you should play Signalis. And with that, it is 2:34 in the morning, and I need to finish putting this video together. So with that, I'm going to go upload this stuff to Google Drive, take a melatonin, and crash on the couch probably at this point after it's done exporting. So that thank you all for watching, and have a good day, good night, whatever it is at the time of watching this. I'm sorry you sat through watching me try and explain my emotions over a game. But with that, I'm done. It's late.